Chin.
Hi.
We're on an internal mic here, and it's time for another exciting episode of the Agency Podcast. And today we have Candy Minx.
Yep.
And we have a special guest, Anthony Stagg.
Yeah, that's
Anthony
right.
Stagg, agent reporting.
Yeah, famous now. He's on two YouTube videos
That's right.
interviewing him or focusing on him in Kensington Market.
Because Stagg has been making paintings here and then setting up and, well, why don't you tell us about it? What your strategy is here?
Yeah, I'll just start off by saying the two YouTube video things. One of them is Eugene,
Right.
rediscovering his Toronto, and he did it's titled Portable Painter, and it's me setting up, and it was fun to share that, but not to go too deep into it. Eugene goes out at different areas and does walks and rediscovers and compares how he remembers the whole area of this city compared to how it looks now. And things are changing so fast, it's really like as he's recording it. But anyway, I've been here and I've been painting a lot. I still have some paintings dry that need to be finished, which is a good feeling to have. And there's a lot of paintings that I did finish. And I put them in a cart. And sometimes I'm lucky to get a ride.
Like a grocery cart.
Yeah.
Like a
To be
grandma's
specific.
cart, a grandma's cart that you pull, a
Yeah,
shopping cart.
some people use them for laundry and stuff. I load it up with paintings, and I take the streetcar down to near the Chinatown, and I walk it over to Kensington Market. And I find the area, and I set up some paintings, and people go by, and they ask questions, and I remind them they're for sale.
Now you go to the officially sanctioned place that you pay rent on, and you are officially allowed to sell paintings.
It's the spirit of Kensington Market is alive and well.
Or are you saying that you set up in front of dead storefronts?
Yeah, dead storefronts.
Well, do we know...
Answers are correct.
Yeah, do we know a little bit about Kensington Market? I don't know any official history. I only know the time I've spent there. Lots of underground bars. There used to be speakeasies. Not that anybody would have one of those now. And there's some food restaurants. It supplied a lot of restaurants. Is that
Yes,
correct?
originally it was a Jewish market in
Yes.
Toronto. And when I was a kid, going to Kensington, what I remember the most is the chickens.
Oh, yeah.
The livestock and the chickens they would have out in cages.
And rabbits.
And like if you wanted, say, a Hassan pepper for dinner, you would point at this nice live bunny, and they would dispatch it to bunny heaven for you and wrap it up and send you on your way. And the same with if you wanted some, a roaster, a chicken, whatever, you could get all those things there. And then I guess the law must have changed, and they weren't allowed to.
Protesters and different, or just the law changed?
I don't know. I don't know if it was because of protesters.
Okay.
I don't remember any protesters. I just remember one year there was no more chickens.
Yeah, interesting. I remember chickens when I first got here, and rabbits, and goats hanging in the window, and different animals being aerated, and sausages. And I remember that there was. I did see some protesting in the market when I did get there. And then there was always people going, this is disgusting, we got to end this, it's cruel. And it was cruel. They were in cages. They were live animals in little cages. However, it certainly was fresh. And restaurants used to do that all the time. There's a fish market, right? So it did supply a lot of restaurants, and it also supplied regular shoppers in the city.
Yeah, I guess the trend has been away from that kind of wet market here in Toronto. Compared to what I've seen in Asia and Vietnam.
Great point.
Where if you go out on the street and you see street food kiosks, one of the first things you might notice is, where's the refrigerator? Because there isn't a refrigerator. But at the same time, they're going down to the wet market at 5 a.m. and they're buying very, very fresh meat. And they're taking it out to the street, preparing it, and selling everything they have, and then going home.
Yeah.
So it's not about how long can I keep this meat in my refrigerator and continually serve it. You buy it, you prepare it, you sell it, you go home. It's a completely different way of looking at food, I think. And we're going away from that. We want our food to be wrapped up and sanitized and look like a nice, clean product, as opposed to, again, I remember one wet market in the Mekong Delta where there was a table that was just piled up with hooves, and another table that was just piled up with brains,
maybe pig's feet.
And all kinds of things that if we use them, we hide them in things. It's hidden in the sausage, right?
Yeah.
Whereas there, it's a way of dealing with food is using all of it. There's just no waste.
Well, and I think that's important. I mean, I was vegetarian when I first went to the market, so it was a little off-putting and shocking. But my concern was the health of the animals living in those tiny cages for a couple of days before they died. However, I do think fresh food, farm to table, is an amazing thing where you get cared for animals.
When animals like Stagg are down there set up, he doesn't even need a cage.
No, he doesn't.
No, he doesn't.
That's right.
So
tell us some of your adventures.
Another element I've noticed on this subject is in my not as long experience in Kensington Market as Candy or Eugene, a lot of it is just supply and demand.
True.
So if the market's there for it, it could exist, and when that market's gone, it's gone. For example, in the early 2000s when I would go there were more t-shirt shops with just a little bit of jewelry and lots of clothes and a lot of retro things. Those are still there, just not as many because so much has changed between whatever date I'm talking about the story till now.
Yeah.
Anyway, while setting up, I've met some other people just because I'm setting up. Like there's other people with
the underground
jewelry tables, yes, and you see how that happens. Some of the people roll up in cars and pull out their tables and their wares, and then there's other people who walk them in wagons, and a few people even make deals with some of the businesses there and store their things there, which I've seen, which is it truly is underground. So there's a whole complicated
an ecosystem.
Yeah, that goes along with that. I've sold some paintings there, which is great. It's great to meet all different types of people there. There's also types of people that you can only see there, which I just love and I thrive on. A lot of retro rock stuff and just so much diversity crammed in a little area. And
real characters.
So I got a question.
Yeah.
One day you left here wearing a Sonic Youth t-shirt and you came home wearing a Harley Davidson t-shirt.
Yeah.
How did it transform from Sonic Youth to Harley Davidson? That's my question.
Okay, that's a good question. And it's a great story. It makes me so happy. I was standing outside for a long time, and this man comes up to me and starts talking. And he's looking at my paintings, and I'm telling him about the cost and which ones are acrylic and which ones are oil. And I compliment him on his rock and roll kind of industrial, like awesome Gary Newman t-shirt. And he had a cool baseball hat, which I forgot about. And then he's eyeing my shirt. And then he's like, your shirt is retro. I really like it. Would you take money for it? And I'm just listening to him like, I mean, I have a lot of conversations with a lot of people. I don't know if they mean it or not. And then he goes, I'll tell you what, Stagg, I'm going to go away and I'm going to come back and then probably around like $80 for your shirt. What do you say? And I go, well, he goes, okay, I'll be back and then you'll tell me. So he goes away, and a lot of people tell me they're going to come back. And
Probably like everybody.
Yeah, a lot of them.
Yeah, they're nervous. They don't
And
want
they
to hurt your feelings.
and they don't, or they just don't know what to say, or some of them do want to come back and they forget. A lot of them don't. It doesn't matter. And sure enough, who comes walking down the street? Is this man? He's coming back. He's got a little shopping bag, and he's with his friend, and we're taking pictures, and he pulls out $80, and I was like, $80 for the shirt and this Scooby-Doo painting. And he's like, okay. So they open up the bag, and I'm putting on this Harley Davidson shirt I'm wearing now, and he got my vintage Sonic Youth T-shirt, and it was so funny because I'm not of that world. I can't look at shirts and say which one's vintage, which one isn't, how much it's worth just by sight. And I didn't know there's a whole thing of it.
There are worlds I have not told you.
Yes, many worlds that I have not been told of.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really, really funny.
I think it's such a good example of one of the reasons for busking and doing this is that the art world is toxic. So some of us don't want to focus on the money. People are like, well, how much do you sell? When do you sell? Did you make this much? And for me, that's not the magic of it. The magic of it is finding a way around the system. And, if we look back on all our photos that come up on Facebook, we've been busking our artwork since 2011, really, maybe before that. And I look at those pictures and I'm amazed. All those paintings are gone. We don't own them anymore. They sold. Yeah, was it millions of dollars? No, it was affordable. It was what people would pay. They won't pay a lot. And they're gone.
Yeah.
They're all gone.
Well, a
It's
small
weird.
number of people will pay a great deal.
Yes, but true. And sometimes they do pay more on the street. Sometimes they do. It depends. And we have different prices that we charge if it's a more sentimental picture to us or a transitional painting or some reason that we think it's important, we put more money on it. But
an old friend of mine who was operated in the business community, let's say he was a consultant, he'd say, Eugene, your paintings are way, way too cheap.
Yeah.
You got to up your prices because you want the people that I'm working for to buy your paintings, and they're not going to buy them unless you up your prices so your paintings get into the stratosphere that they're used to paying.
Right, I understand that.
Fascinating.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, because those people aren't worried about being connected. When you're busking,
That's right.
You want to be connected. Really what you're buying is you're buying me and you're buying Stagg. You're buying our conversation.
Well, that's why you use words like busking, because busking means playing for tips.
Yes.
And so in a sense, you're giving out artwork for tips.
Correct. It really is that.
Yeah.
Generous tips, but still tips.
There's
Absolutely.
a real one-to-one connection, like one at a time, one person likes one piece, it's like that, usually one-to-one.
And I remember when I busked for,
different sense of
I
time.
used to do advice.
Yeah.
And I had a sign that said advice. I had to wear, I wore a hat, I had a little chair and a chair for somebody else. And, really what they're doing is they're tipping you for, they first of all
For
think
companionship?
first of all they think it's bullshit. Yeah, why can you give advice? I said, well, bartender, 20 years. They go, ooh, yeah, you are qualified. And, they want and then they come up with a problem, or they may see you and try and give you a challenge. I'm going to try and trick her. What's the meaning of life? You know what I mean? They're going to find a question that they think you can't answer. Well, of course, that one's an easy one. But they might want something like, well, you're gonna have to follow us on Patreon.
Yeah.
It's obviously love is the meaning of life, and it's an easy answer. And people are like, oh, that's great, and then they'll drop you a good tip, or they may seriously have a health issue. I mean, one woman asked me about candida. I mean, it could be anything, or a boyfriend issue, or something, right? And you're really paying for the theater of talking to somebody on the street.
Years ago when I used to take my button accordion downtown and busk with my button accordion, I loved it when there would be kids.
Mm-hmm.
There would be like some harried parents with their 4 or 5 kids running around, and the kids would see my accordion, and their eyes would get big.
Yeah.
And when I'd see that, I would squat down and get on my knees, get really low, and the kids would come running up to me, and then I'd let them play the notes, and it would make all kinds of awful sounds, and I would try to play while they're like hitting, and man, those parents are the most generous parents because I am entertaining their children. It's the best.
That is beautiful. I love that. And kids, it's like a magic machine too when they see an
Oh,
instrument.
they loved it. Yes,
a real life instrument.
Yes,
Never mind
because
an
no one
accordion.
had taught them yet that
Yes.
accordions aren't cool.
Right.
They didn't know.
That's so true. They are pure of heart still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same with art. I
I was
remember.
going to say the same thing.
I remember having an art exhibition once, and somebody brought their kids, and I had a great big painting there, and this kid was pointing at parts of the painting and walking along the painting, making sense of it with her finger, pointing to the different parts, relating the different parts, and I thought, this is so beautiful, because no one is getting in the way of this kid's pure and simple understanding of this painting. The painting offers everything it has right in front of you, and this kid is like, yeah, I'm in. I'm totally in for wherever it's taking me. It's a beautiful thing. We teach ourselves to put up barriers so we can't do that.
Yeah.
That's true.
I know exactly what you're talking about. A couple weeks ago, a little child was just looked like he could learn to walk and speak. He was so little, still not even enough toddler-like, still very much baby. Stops in his tracks and points and says, "Pink Panther, Pink Panther." And it was my Pink Panther painting.
It's so cute.
And it's a great feeling. It's like you're so right in your description of your experience. All the barriers they're just gone.
And there's a lot of people that actually don't see art in their daily life. They actually don't see art in their lives. I mean, obviously we have tattoos and video art. I meant classic art.
We have
I guess,
TikTok.
like painting.
Yeah.
That's the art that people see. TikTok and
You're right.
maybe YouTube for people with patience.
So you get to see some fun reactions, like all those young women that
Oh,
walk by
yeah.
with their phones and.
Yeah. Sometimes they'll be shy and then they'll sneak pictures in. But I don't mind anybody taking a picture and then they'll run away. Another time I was standing there and I heard them 10 feet away, and these young teenage girls, and they were almost laughing and they were going, "That was so random." I know, random.
It's so funny.
Yeah, it was funny.
That's rad.
Yeah.
And then, when we were in Trinity Bellwoods Park, and someone walked by, a couple walked by, remember?
Yeah.
And she's like, "What is that?" And her friend was like, "That's art." And she's, "What?"
And then the other one goes, "I don't see any art."
Yeah.
And then the guy was like, "It's art."
I know, that's good.
Yeah, it was a funny answer. It was a weird overheard discussion.
Well, you're seeing so many different people out there too. Kensington Market is amazing. There are
Yeah,
clothes.
it's one of my favorite spots ever.
Yeah, me too.
And I also learned I'm on good authority, there's word going around that because of, let's say, 5 blocks towards the lake, there were, years ago, these let's say public housing type of structures that were there.
That's correct. The other side of Dundas Street.
Yeah, those are all gone. And now
Are they really? I didn't know that.
Well, in the area that being referred to in the story,
Okay.
and now there's condos going up, and there's big machines going in and out with construction every day. And
I've seen some of the construction there.
yeah. And the source has been telling me in the future, he already sees, knows that the city will be coming in, putting in proper sidewalks with proper curbs, which will be changing the street.
That's the first step down, isn't it?
Which
is
will
the city fixing stuff.
which will change, yes, the atmosphere of the whole market. But the key part is really that may be a cover or introduction or the same time as piping going in underneath towards these new towering condo, let's say tower like
Is this a
buildings.
story of the doom of Kensington falling to condos?
And corporate, maybe they're going to take over those houses, or they're going to tear them down.
I guess finally when Kensington is gone, it'll be time to leave Toronto.
Ooh.
Wow.
I mean, I hope they don't get rid of Kensington. I mean, it's possible that people would say we want to keep our houses. But can you keep those houses when they're offering you so much money for them? Or would they keep the houses and build apartments up above them? They could do something weird like that.
Sure.
Over top and keep the street feeling.
Well, that's what happened on Washington Avenue in the 80s when suddenly all the buildings were bought and sold,
Mm-hmm.
and all those weird Vietnamese dark coffee shops opened up and
Right,
karaoke places.
right.
Um, and then that area completely changed again in the last couple years. And I was down there shooting video recently, and I didn't recognize anything. Nothing.
Right. Well, it's interesting, which brings up one of the things I like about your videos that you've got on YouTube is that part of a city, you know, when speculators come in, they want to go, that's just old. My father was like, we tear down buildings like that in Calgary. He was always like that. And I was like, yeah, that's what happened wrong in Calgary. But they want to nitpick about, that's just nostalgia, like dismiss it. But part of Eugene's thing is about how important nostalgia is. You're expressing your memories of a place. Yes. And that's partly our memory of somewhere is what we are attached to and we love. And then there's also the loss. And sometimes it is improved.
Well, my memory is, in a sense, what I have to offer. There's a lot of people do YouTube videos, and you kind of have to find your niche. Yeah. Like, what do you have that other people don't have? Right. And a lot of the people who are doing videos in cities, they're kids. They're kids, from my perspective, they're kids. People maybe in their or 20s.
And they're great videos.
Yes.
They're very compelling.
I have no criticism there. No. All I'm suggesting is that these are people who have a very short amount of life experience. Yeah. And if there's anything that I bring to my videos, it's having the memory of what it was like 30 years ago or 40 years ago, what we used to do in those places, and how this city's function is changing, and how people use the city and enjoy the city, and how we live in the city. Yeah. And a lot of that, I'm finding that there were things I thought I knew, which I'm going on looking. It's like, I don't know this part of the city at all. Yeah. I'm just finding new things out all the time. Yeah. So I've done 23 videos in about a month and a half. So it's been really intensive. And in fact, today, the plan was I was going to pick up my friend, Dr. K. Cyanide, the poet, and he was going to go out filming with me somewhere, and I know that would definitely spice things up a little bit and give it a different kind of character than some of the videos. But right now, you can't get there from here.
No, you can't get there from there.
Now, I've noticed this since I started doing this. I'm in the west side of the city, right? And if you go to the east side of the city for anything right now, you need to really want to do it, and you need to be able to plan to do a lot of it there, because getting across from east to west and from west to east is very, very difficult right now. So why is that? Well, today, the entire lakeshore is closed because of a car race called the Molson Indy. The Gardiner Expressway has multiple lane closures for 3 years. The lower part of Spadina has problems related to track work, which are bunging things up. Adelaide, there's construction downtown. Queen Street at Bay is completely closed, just shut down. The Ontario line is being constructed all through downtown, so you don't know the route there, so it's just randomly things under construction. The Eglinton LRT is under construction. The King Street, a whole area in King Street between Bathurst and Jarvis, the city started a pilot a few years ago, and then the pilot meant people won't be angry about it after a year, and we won't call it a pilot anymore. And basically, they don't let you drive on King Street anymore. Right. And there were good reasons for it. There was a big problem with the streetcars along King Street and Queen Street. When the traffic gets busy, the streetcars get bugged up and they can't get through very fast. So they wanted to increase the speed of public transit and make public transit more attractive. And to do that, they said, let's just make it so no one can drive on King Street anymore. And then the public transit can have basically a whole right of way. And that was great, unless, of course, you're running a business on King Street, in which case it may be less great.
Yeah, and for crime rates, there's some correlation between when you make it if you make a place pedestrian. They wanted to make Kensington Market pedestrian. I resisted that. I wrote in letters No, that's not safe. Maybe once in a while, a few hours pedestrian and no cars, but it's not safe to. You want cars and traffic, so people are being watched and we're watching each other and hanging out.
I think some kind of balance
Yes, a
between
balance.
pedestrian traffic,
Yes.
transit, and private vehicles
Correct.
would be ideal.
Yeah.
But it's Toronto's becoming a city in which it's becoming more and more difficult to navigate by vehicle. And some of us who are stubborn like me, who when I was living in the downtown west area in the 80s and 90s, I had places I could park all through the downtown area.
Good luck.
And so I just drove places. I had a car.
Yep.
I drove around. Now Toronto's becoming a lot more like many other cities in which the idea of driving around downtown is painfully difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And so, when I'm doing my videos, like I'm planning on going out tonight and I'll be taking the subway across because with the Lakeshore closed and the Gardner problems, even staying to the West End, I'm not going to be able to get very far very fast by car. So it's going to be public transit for sure.
Well,
When you mentioned in those areas about businesses, what's obvious but not blatantly, openly talked about, I don't think as much, is the ratio of tourists to locals. If you're out from somewhere else and you figure out how to go to and from someplace, either in a whole group or just by yourselves without public transportation or on public transportation, I mean, are you going to area where everybody's walking around? All these things will affect your experience. And if you're a local just going to and from work, just trying to live your life and trying to love the city or whatever, it shows itself in all different ways depending upon people's interests and how much dedication they have to something or how they choose to live. Are they going by bike? Are they Ubering? Are they taking a taxi? Are they taking public transportation? Are they taking a train? Are they going to walk from somewhere? Is it a group?
What I'm seeing now, if there's one big change that I'm seeing in the city, it's the rise of the e-bike.
Oh, yeah.
First we saw those ones that tried to look like Vespas, and they seem to have come and gone. And now there's a trend towards high-end e-bikes, some of which are hugely expensive, some of which cost like $4,000.
That's crazy.
Like a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
But you can get them as cheap as like $800, I think.
Are they theft resistant?
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
I know you can carry the battery with you.
Oh.
You take the battery off if you have to lock it. But I would be scared to lock a bike that I just spent $1,800 on.
What about the seat? Anything you can take off of it, right?
Yeah.
Do you have a stereo on there? What about the brake handles? If they're fancy, are they going to be taken off? I don't.
Yeah,
I mean,
because
I don't know.
Toronto has a long and storied history of bike theft.
It sure does.
And
Which
in
kind of
fact,
goes back to Kensington Market.
yeah, a number of years ago, someone got busted who happened to be selling most of the bikes that were stolen from everybody.
And we don't want to say who it was.
We don't want to say who it was.
Make enemies.
I don't even know who it was. So
yeah, okay. Well, yeah, I would be willing to say, and I can't believe I'm saying it, that Toronto was more difficult and challenging to drive in than Chicago and Manhattan. Definitely more difficult than Manhattan. I love driving in Manhattan.
although we don't have the
just
death ride. I mean the Dan Ryan.
Right. That's true. But I navigate that. I'm used to it. And I just feel the neighborhood driving around, it's not as bogged down. We've talked about this before, that Toronto may want to consider 24-hour construction on the roads, because they're just dragging this out.
Well, I think they need to do that on the Gardner.
Yeah.
And they're worried because the people who live in the towers that overlook the Gardner, they're worried that these folks are going to complain about the noise.
Well, I think they will. Yeah.
And maybe they will, but it seems to me that if you've bought yourself a condo overlooking the biggest expressway in the biggest city in the country, then you also have probably armed yourself with some noise-canceling headphones so you can go to sleep at night.
Right.
Otherwise, why wouldn't you buy in a quieter place?
Yeah, if you want quiet, there's suburbs for that. Yeah.
So I'm not concerned about those folks.
Right.
And I'm sorry if you folks are among my listeners here, and you're going to be upset with me.
Right.
But I think you can endure a little bit of nighttime construction noise so that everybody in the city can have a Gardner Expressway that works a little better.
And then it's over. Instead of a year, 3 months maybe, you know?
Or at least over for now, because
Well,
later there'll be more maintenance.
More maintenance, that's so true. Very true. Have we got any movies or TV shows? Have you been watching anything?
Well, for me, I've been mostly running out doing videos at every moment I've had. And when I haven't been doing that, I've been practicing the fiddle.
Right.
Because, I'm going to Fiddle Week this year. For the first time. I'm so excited. I'm going to Pembroke to Fiddle Week. And, I'm going to watch the competitions and try to jam with some people in Fiddle Park. And I even get to finally meet my fiddle teacher who's also going, so I'm looking forward to that. And I've made another couple of friends who live in the Chicago area who are coming, and so I'm looking forward to seeing them.
Oh, yeah.
So it's going to be really exciting. So I've tried to get my fiddle skills as strong as I can so that I don't embarrass myself too badly jamming.
Well, we heard you playing. It was really good. You're really good. That's pretty fast how good you got in such a short period of time.
That's because all I do is play.
Yeah. It's a lot of dedication.
Yeah. Well, Stagg and I have seen a couple of things. I saw something that you didn't see, and I really want to recommend it to people. It's called Flaming Hot. And it's Eva Longoria's. It might be her directorial debut. I'm not sure, but she's female. She's Latin American, Latin USA. And she made a great, fun movie. It's a period piece set in the 1980s. It moves into the 90s. And it stars, let me get my notes here. It stars Annie Gonzalez and Jesse Garcia. And they play Judy and Richard Montefez. And he's basically a drug salesman on the street, if you will.
Okay.
And bit of a gang guy. But he wants his wife and his girlfriend. They fall in love when they're young, and they're very, very much in love. And she's pretty ambitious, and he's ambitious. So she's always encouraging him. And one of his buddies or neighbor gets him a job at Frito-Lay. And it's almost like, well, I don't want to be in the gang life anymore. It's pretty dangerous. And some of these guys want to keep these jobs. And so he's going to be a janitor. He's going to be a custodian at Frito-Lay. When he gets there, he's very curious about all the different jobs. He watches all the equipment, how they fix it, and he hits it up. Remember the president from 24? I want to say Hasselblad. I forgot his name. Dennis Haysbert? I think that's his name. And he was the president in the TV show 24. And he does State Farm. Well, he plays this guy that turns into a mentor to Richard Montefez. And Tony Shalhoub plays the CEO, Roger Enrico. He's the CEO of PepsiCo. So this all sounds very boring, probably. But the thing that's really incredible is it is a biopic. It's done like an 80s style. She has great editing and all kinds of effects. And it's not the best acting in the world, but it's great performances. Does that make sense? Rotten Tomatoes gave it like 60%, but audience appreciation is about 90%. So there's a lot of cultural pride.
You mean the critics could have had it wrong?
Maybe.
Cool.
Yeah, but there's a lot of cultural pride and neighborhood pride, and if you like anything about Mexican American or Latin American United States culture, you're going to love this, or just want to be exposed to it. So much fun. He gets this idea. He watches a video. You know, one of those kind of, if you work in the corporation, you might get this video and the boss is going to give you a pep talk. Well, he watches it. It almost has a transcendent experience. And it's done with a lot of humor. The whole movie is. It's very cute. And he goes, I'm going to write him. I'm going to phone him. He gets the phone number of the president. And he calls him up. He goes, I've got a great idea. My wife makes beautiful spicy chips and popcorn. We put all these spices on your Frito-Lays. And you're not representing my culture at all. And my whole neighborhood will buy everything. And he goes, well, how did you get my number? And why are you calling me? Well, you told me to be in, I watched your video. He goes, you watched my video? So Enrico is very surprised that he watches, and he goes, okay, well, come and give me I'm coming into the plant and I'm going to meet you. Well, all the plant managers who are always slacking off, and they're now pissed off at him because he's going to bring the CEO of Frito-Lay's into the warehouse.
Oh, yeah.
And so
Nobody wants that.
Right, and he gives them something like a month. He goes, get your recipe together, and I'll give you a month. So he goes home to his wife, and he goes, baby, come on, make your spices. Now, when the little kid, they've got like a few kids, and when the baby eats the Frito-Lays, he starts crying. He's about 3. And they go, oh, is it good hot or bad hot? He goes, good hot. But he's bawling his eyes out because it's hot. He goes, it's good hot. So they go, and she starts making all her heirloom recipes from her family. And they buy all the chilies here. They buy those chilies, these chilies, those chilies, upside down chilies, whatever she needs. And they're smashing them all in the kitchen and making this. And you just see, montages of them getting this together. And finally they're like, no, that's it. Right? And so they take it to him. And I mean, people, at first all his coworkers are jealous, but this guy says, okay, we're going to do a run. And they're like, what? Because they were going to lose their jobs. He goes, no, I'm going to create jobs. We're going to do a run. So they do a fake run, put it in the stores, cricket, nothing selling. So he goes and he grabs them off the shelves and he gets all his friends to pass them around the neighborhood, right? It's very cute. Is that exactly as it happened? It's theatrical, but I highly recommend this movie. If you're looking for Apocalypse Now, it's not. And it's not Perfect Day, but it is just a delightful movie by a female director, and she just did a fantastic job. It feels like you're watching an 80s movie, so I would highly recommend that. We also saw, which I loved, was The Bike Riders. This is, his name's Nichols, the director. He did Mud. So that's probably his most...
I love Mud.
Yes, you're probably going to love this. I can't say. I can never predict if you
Even
like
the
something.
Lincoln guy was good in Mud.
Oh, yeah, the Lincoln guy, Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah.
Well, this is a delightful movie. This summer is unusual that we had 2 motorcycle movies come out. Furiosa and The Bike Riders. And it's based on a real-life gang called the Outlaws in Chicago. And, I mean, these are some scary motherfuckers in real life.
Yeah.
But they had a photographer, Danny Lyons, right? I'm just going to prod you here, Stagg. And he made a photo album in the 60s. And he was so involved with this gang that and it's called The Vandals in the movie. I wouldn't want to say allegedly the Outlaws. And he made a photo essay of these gang. And he was so involved that he joined the gang. He authentically was so moved to him, but he was with the gang for at least 80 years.
Doing all his photography.
And he did his photography, yeah. And this guy, the director, Nichols, he took the photo album and he wrote scripts out of it. And it is fantastic. You have 3 actors, Tom Hardy, who can't do anything wrong in his life, and he is like the intellect. Then you have Austin Butler, who is such a man of action that he has almost no dialogue, but he's absolutely gorgeous. He played Elvis. So he's got the genre bending of this movie is that they've got him as the gaze, as the beauty, instead of the woman, who is also absolutely gorgeous, but it's her movie. So they've got a movie with a female character, just like Furiosa, and pretty exciting. What did you think of it?
Yeah, I like the way it was filmed. The darks in the film are very, they go with the leather and the aesthetics of the whole thing. And you feel a little bit like you're in that time, in that era. And you see to a lot of like squares, it would seem the personalities would be extreme. But
they are.
If you're around that world, all that just goes with that. So,
well, it's a part I think that's really important about Americana and Weird America is that the director of George Miller of Furiosa, and the director here are really focusing on the freedom of outsiders. And being outside the system. In fact, in Furiosa, she wants freedom so bad that she sacrifices something very important to her just to be alive and be free. And you see these guys do the same kind of thing. Now, some of their freedom gets into a gang and leads to a lot of restrictions and control. But the urge of freedom, the sound of the motorcycles, the leather, you can hear the leather in the movie. Do you remember the movie we watched with Jason Momoa? That was made? Yeah, he directed it. It was about a month ago. And it's about, he's out in the West and I don't even remember the premise of it. It's not a super memorable
He's supposed to be like
movie.
some kind of First Nation character.
Yes.
Yeah. And he meets up with a rocker in the alley.
Right.
And there's a lot of brawling and motorcycle riding.
That's true. Well, it was overwhelming atmospherically, and The Bike Riders is like that too. I felt like you're really in it. And it was great to see a woman being like the center of it and her narration. And how
I've had some total of 1 encounter with bikers in my lifetime.
Interesting.
I might as well tell that story
You
here.
might as well. It'd be perfect.
It goes back to 1991. And I was working for Canada Post, and I was in management, and there was a big strike. The Canadian Union of Postal Workers went on strike. And at this time, the folks who ran the company had this idea that they could move the mail. And it was an ill-considered idea. And the more they wanted to move the mail, of course, the more the union wanted to do anything they could to stop them from moving the mail. So, in a set of events that you couldn't even make up, both sides hired bikers. The CUPW hired their own bikers to do whatever crap they wanted to do, and the management had their own bikers, and they had hired bikers who were in the strike breaking business, I think, from what they said to me. And I met them first in a cornfield in Markham, because we would get these calls at like the middle of the night, 2 in the morning. The phone would ring. I'd answer, hello. I'd hear, this is the deployment center. Be at Buttonville Airport, 6 a.m. Take a Metro cab. And I'd take a Metro cab up to Buttonville Airport, and there'd be guys there like with stacks of money paying cab drivers, and you get your instructions there what we were going to do. So they sent a bunch of us to this cornfield in Markham, and the plan is they were going to helicopter security registered mail out of the plant, the South plant, and then have these bikers deliver it by van to the downtown office towers. And so we were in this cornfield waiting for helicopters to come in, and the bikers drive in, and there's 6 or 7 vans with these guys, and they're all like smoking drugs at 6:30 in the morning, and they're set to go, you know. And I asked one of the guys, like, well, what are you going to do if there's picketers? Knock them on their fucking asses. That's what we're going to do. It's like, okay, that's fine. Have a nice day, sir. So then they flew me by helicopter down to the island airport, and we're loading 5-ton trucks with these heavy bags of mail. And I've been working 12 hours, and I was completely exhausted. And it's 6 blocks from where I lived.
Yeah.
I used to live in the old casket factory at Niagara-Tecumseh, and this is at the island airport. It's not far. I can almost see the building. And they said, no, Eugene, you can't just take the ferry and go home because there's picketers, and we have to look after your safety. And I said, these people all know me. They're not going to hurt me. So no, can't do it. We're going to fly you to Buttonville Airport, which is in the middle of nowhere. I think they finally closed it. But it's way, way up there. And take a Metro cab home. It would be 4 hours before I got home.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do it. I said, I'm not doing it.
Because
I was so cranky and tired. I just wasn't going to do it. So these guys get on their cell phones and they're chit-chatting, trying to figure out what to do. When all of a sudden, I see this cigarette boat come roaring across Lake Ontario, and it skids to a stop at the dock beside us. And one of the guys there said, all right, you get it here. This guy's going to take you to the foot of Bay Street, and you can take a Metro cab from there. So I hop into this boat, and it's like right out of Miami Vice.
Yeah.
It's one of those drug smuggling boats.
Yeah.
And it's being piloted by this guy who is a seriously rough-looking hombre.
Yeah.
Like, he's got, like, the tattoos on his head and stuff, and... you know, on his knuckles and everything. And he looks like he could just, like, tear you apart with his teeth. And he goes, hey, want a beer? So...
Don't drink and drive.
So I said, okay. And he reached in, popped his cooler open, got out a beer, handed me a beer, cracked one for himself, and said, foot of Bay Street, here we come.
Oh, my God.
And I had a beer. This guy turned out to be the leader of whatever bike gang we had hired.
Yeah.
He was the boss, and so he got to drive around in the drug smuggling boat.
Oh my God! And
he zoomed me over to the foot of Bay Street. I finished my beer, handed him the can, climbed out, and took a Metro cab.
Wow.
And that's my only encounter with the motorcycle enthusiast community.
I cannot talk about my I cannot
dear.
talk about it, yeah. Everybody knows about it, but we have a gag order.
Okay.
Let me just say that if anybody wrote an expose on a biker gang, I would tell them, I don't know you anymore. We can just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Hey, we watched Drive Away Dolls, didn't we?
Yeah.
You watched most of it.
Which was Drive Away Dolls?
It was the insane one. You know, I love the Coen brothers. I love everything they do, but every now and then they make a madcap, insane failure of a movie. I mean, failure for them is still better than a lot of people's movies. But I've always wondered what happened when they made that one with George Clooney and Catherine Zeta-Jones. Hey, I watched it. I liked it. But it had problems, right? And you're like, what happened? Well, now I see that it was the Ethan Coen part of the family. And that doesn't mean he's bad. You've got to have that,
is he the wacky one?
He's the wacky one. And you've got to have the outsider. You've got to have the dreamer. This goes right back to Furiosa and bikers and that Wild West. Or creativity, whatever you want to call it. And bucking the system, rejecting the toxic art world. Well, he and his wife of many, many years made Drive Away Dolls. And it's a lesbian extravaganza. You weren't there for some of the great sex scenes.
Oh man!
Yeah,
I always
you
miss
did
the great
miss them.
sex scenes.
You really did, because I was very aware of Sheila and Stagg being in the room with me. I was like, I don't know if I want to watch these sex scenes with my friends.
This movie is worth the Eddie Hazel guitar solo and the drug trips alone.
Wow. Oh, the drug trips, and they're all hosted by Miley Cyrus. It's fantastic. They're psychedelic. So it's not unlike the period piece, Flaming Hot. They have gone retro. They throw in some things that's completely illogical. You don't even understand why there's a psychedelic 70s thing, but maybe the girls have taken some mushrooms or smoked some pot. So there's two main characters. They're best friends. They've had breakups and loneliness, and then they have a lesbian orgy, right? Remember that one? Like a circle jerk almost.
I know I saw some of this movie,
Yes.
but I missed all the good parts,
Yeah, you
clearly.
And it turns out that Ethan Coen and his partner, wife, who I did not write down her name, have a very unique, open, kind of tolerant, experimental, she's bisexual or lesbian. So who cares? Everybody can love somebody and be married to somebody. But I found, and she's been the editor of their films for years, like even Fargo. So they're both accomplished filmmakers. This film is like, you'd almost think somebody would say, don't do it. You've got a perfect career. Don't make this movie. But I would give it 8 out of 10. I thought it was so inventive and crazy and unpredictable that I really liked it.
Yeah, it was really good. I liked how they switched from scene to scene a lot of times. Like the screen would go down and then back up again. And
which I normally wouldn't like.
It was curved.
Yeah.
Kinda.
Oh, yeah, they did some curving things, which sometimes you would think, is this your first film? Like, it would be a little cheesy to use those, your special effects.
All the jokes hit. It was great. Yeah.
It was really good, and I really recommend it. Friendship, comedy of errors, 70s trip motifs, love story, and absurdist. Oh, it's an absurdist lesbian love story. That's my notes. Yeah. And there was great soundtrack. I don't remember particular things. I would say that this shows up in the Hudsucker Proxy. If you watch this and then Hudsucker Proxy, or you've already seen it, you'll know Ethan's influence. It'll be those dream sequences where Jeff Bridges has the fantasy scene, like the old Hollywood 1930s dance scenes, and you're like, is this the Coen brothers? This is so crazy. Well, it is. It's Ethan. It's got to be Ethan. And some of the, Burn After Reading, they have the weird sex scene with the dildo, and the George Clooney makes that oaring machine that's like a big dildo.
I always miss the good stuff. Damn.
But that's got to be this wacky thing. And it's also a beloved kind of, they're still holding on this art. They still make this art film. They've got the 70s vibe. And then they've also made some of the greatest movies ever made. Fargo, Raising Arizona, as a team of brothers and their editor. And she's been the editor of several of their films. So I would recommend that too. It was refreshing to see a non-predictable film. I wrote down Blind Lemon Jefferson, and I have no clue why.
Cool.
But it's near the Drive Away Dolls. I don't know why I wrote it. Look, it's just vague on my notes.
Excellent.
What
You
was
do
I
have
going to do?
Blind Lemon Jefferson in your notes.
I literally do. And then you know why? I think it was I was going through some of the old episodes, Graceland Playback, and I think we had talked about him, so maybe I was going to, who knows what I was going to do with that. I really don't know.
I think it's
never know what
because
I'm doing.
in the Elvis movie, Gary Clark Jr. maybe played Blind Lemon Jefferson, and he was a character in a movie we watched together, but I don't know if it's the one that you saw.
I don't either.
No.
Yeah, weird.
You know that chef movie where the guy gets the
food truck?
Yeah, food truck.
Oh yeah, that's a good movie. We talked about that, I think.
Yeah.
Chef.
You've seen it, Chef. Yeah.
Yeah.
We just watched that again. It was on the other
Was
day.
it still good?
Yeah.
Well, I only saw the same amount that I saw of the lesbian movie.
Yes.
I saw the parts that weren't good of the chef movie too. So if you could put together the parts I saw of the chef movie with the parts I saw of the other one, I could make my own edit.
I was going to say, maybe
Yes.
we need to make the lesbian chef food truck movie, the extraordinaire. I had a callback. And my callback, or fix it, is about Saul LeWitt. Remember when we were talking about was it murder? And I was like trying to explain how difficult it was working on this set piece. And I had forgotten that when we get what did we call it? His emissary, what do you call it when he sends out someone to lead the project manager?
Yeah.
Basically, but in art world speak. And I blinked it out and I
think he referred to him as his studio assistant.
Yes.
But he had several of them, I think.
Dozens of them, because they were you had to have them at every site.
Because it was like a business.
It's a business.
I had no idea it was a business, that there was this many of them.
Right.
Wall drawings going on around the world.
Right. So there you go. So this guy arrives. We got there early, our team. There was 3 of us. Alicia, Martina, and I. And we got there early, and this guy comes in, and the first thing he says to us is, I thought I was going to have big, strong men. And we're like, oh my God, not only is this a business, we're in a government-run museum. We let it slide. We just laughed and said, hey, we're strong, and moved on, because we were so excited to do this job. We were like so positive, right? But over the weeks, there were many things like that. And eventually, this is what I wanted to mention about this art world corruption. At one point, he kicks us off the job site. We lose our privileges on the job site. Now, it's because...
Such as they are.
Such as they are. There weren't many. And we did all the math, Martina and I, mostly Martina, on how to draw this thing because he had no clue. We had to draw wavy lines on an 8-walled room and make them all look the same, but you can't make them look the same if you know anything about an angle on the wall. That fades, and you have to make it appear to flow, so you're fudging the math. But he had no clue how to do it. And Martina and I figured out, but mostly Martina. I don't know if it was topology or what we were doing, but we were like scientists, magicians. He kicks us off because he does the final coat of paint. So I do understand that it's the final coat of paint. We'd already done 8 coats of paint, of thinly washed paint, watered out. But he kicks us off, and then the museum had to keep us on because we had a contract for 8 weeks, so they had to find odd jobs for us to do because we were like, we're not leaving. He said when we walked in the room, we kind of fessed up how our work conditions. And then the insult to be treated like you're not allowed to come in. There was no preparation. There was no warning. He was just so rude to us. So there's a little taste of it. Little taste of it. I wanted to fix that and remember what the first words out of his mouth from us. Yes, the first words.
I will say when I worked on a Saul LeWitt wall drawing, along with John McCartney.
Right.
I was at David Bellman Gallery, and I'm going to say that David Bellman treated us like princes.
Yeah, you did.
He treated us very, very well.
Yes.
The studio assistant was snarky, and he did criticize me because I wasn't twirling my 9/8
Yeah,
pencil.
you said that on the episode of the Was
so,
Murder.
I mean,
yes.
and not that I'm bitter about that, but I haven't forgotten about it, and that was in the 80s.
Yes.
So, and they did spell my name wrong, and there was that. But David Bellman, he was wonderful, and every day he would take us out for splendid lunches.
Yeah.
And even though we weren't getting paid, it was a volunteer effort.
Oh, really?
We had no pay for that.
I think they have to pay everybody now.
We were doing it just because we were art students, and it's like, hey, we get to work on a Saul LeWitt wall drawing.
Then you get to put it on your resume if you.
And we we were art students, and these were the best lunches. These were better lunches. We'd go to the Queen Mother and places like that, and we would have just wonderful, huge lunches.
Yeah.
And like half the art scene would show up to see how the project was going around lunchtime.
Yeah, that is pretty special.
And then off we would all go for these lunches.
Very
then
special.
after, when the show was over and they had to paint over the whole thing, they hired John and I to paint over it. and they paid us $7 an hour, which at the time
seemed like
was
a fortune.
It's for us, for art students who really didn't have much in the way of work.
Right.
It was big time cash.
Yeah.
It's like $7 an hour.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we're
Oh, for
moguls
sure.
now.
Yeah. Well, then we got paid very well, and we were really wanted to do it, and we had so much fun, and we had a good overall treatment from the museum. It wasn't really until it chipped away at you over the weeks that you started to realize something's hinky here. You know what I mean? And it's not bitterness, I feel. It's actual injustice.
Can I just clarify
Yes.
the language?
Yes.
Is hinky the same as lumpy?
I don't know. Isn't hinky like dodgy?
And what do you say, Stag?
Squirrely.
Squirrely.
I like when people use
Dodgy.
the word
So-
off.
So lumpy,
it's just
lumpy
off.
is
Lumpy
it's just,
is-
it isn't quite as it should be. It's kind
Yes,
of lumpy.
lumpy.
Yeah, lumpy.
It's a little different than hinky.
Right, because
Yes.
I think hinky is closer to injustice. Where, I mean,
Whereas lumpy could be injustice, but it could
or
be
it could
just
be
nothing.
just a jerk.
Yeah.
It could be just that the person, you weren't in the right thing. Like you had to wear shoes that didn't work
Yeah.
well in the gallery, or you had to wear a cap or
Yeah,
something.
some people
I
used
know
to
our
say-
listeners would want us to clarify
Yes.
that.
That's true.
Some people used to say it's about to go sideways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. This was bordering on legal situations. We weren't going to do that, but we certainly had the option and the discussion. It was like that uncomfortable. And of course we weren't going to do that in that situation that day. But I said I'm never going to not talk about it or tell people about it. But it's not bitterness. It's social injustice.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's a fine line sometimes
In
between
that
bitterness and social
Yes.
justice.
Yes, there
And,
is.
yes, it is. And,
Yes.
and I guess it depends on who you are. And toxic art market. We can't not say that enough. I think I've come to the end of my notes,
Okay.
which I can't believe it. Yeah, that's awesome.
Stag's notes are he's wearing a T-shirt that says Harley Davidson.
Well, he
Yeah.
traded it for his, which
Yeah.
goes right back to our biker motif here,
Yes.
and outsiders and freedom.
Yeah.
Although it's corporatized, right?
so I guess this is the biker episode.
It could be the biker episode. We could call it that. Do we need to write that down? The biker summer.
So thanks for sticking with us, folks. I know we haven't published a lot during the summer. What can I say? It's been hot. But we hope to have more podcasts coming at you very soon.
And don't forget to email us at theagency.podcast, or you can comment on our Facebook page, or you can subscribe to Eugene's YouTube page, which is Rediscovering My Toronto.
And while that isn't mandatory, it is strongly encouraged.
Yes, you can subscribe to mine too. It's Candy Minx on YouTube. So,
It's
Dave's got
also
one too.
it's also fun to join the agency podcast
It is.
group.
It is on Facebook.
It's just a Facebook group.
But we do
There's a lot
post
of
something-
information on there.
Yes, we
It's
do.
a lot of fun.
We do, and we post topics related to the episodes, and sometimes we just post a topic that we think is pop culture, which reminds me of something else. Rest in peace, Bob Newhart.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And thank you for all the laughs.
big time.
absolutely. I used to watch Bob Newhart show with my dad, the first one.
Yeah, me too, with my family.
My dad loved just how dry he was.
Oh, God, yeah. And we had the albums. And even though I was probably too young to understand them, as I grew up, I would listen to them and think, this is really cool. Like, this is amazing. And it probably affected our sense of humor. I mean, you're pretty dry. I mean, some people might call it sarcastic or cantankerous, but I would call it dry.
Ooh.
Because I'm your friend.
Yeah, I mean, you could
I'm
even
your
say
friend.
cranky.
I could say cranky, but I
There's a
love you.
thin line between cranky and cantankerous
I'm
and social
actually-
injustice.
I'm probably like the Pollyanna of the world, and I'm with the two big cranks sometimes.
Sometimes.
Not all the time. And they both have heart of gold. And what else? Oh,
Thanks,
of
Kenny.
course. And then I watched the Newhart in the 80s, too.
Yeah.
So, great stuff.
Hey, next time, we've been watching season 3 of The Bear.
Oh!
And so next time we're going to be talking about season 3 of The Bear. So make sure you get caught up on
Yep.
that so you can argue with us about it.
And
Yeah.
we might